My brother framed me for theft to get my inheritance, so I collected every proof silently, exposed him publicly, and walked away as his life fell apart completely. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and I used to believe that family loyalty was something sacred, something that could never be broken. But that belief died the day my brother proved how wrong I was. Ryan and I grew up in a household where our father's word was law. He was a stern man built from nothing, ran a small empire of rental properties, and made sure we understood the value of discipline. Our mother was softer, the peacekeeper, but she had a blind spot when it came to Ryan. He was the golden boy, charming, confident, the kind of guy who could talk his way out of anything. I was the opposite, quiet, methodical, the one who followed rules instead of bending them. When our father's health started to decline, everything in the house shifted. Suddenly, every conversation circled around medical bills, estate plans, and who would handle things when the time came. I handled most of the logistics, doctor's appointments, paperwork, managing the tenants, but Ryan somehow always found a way to show up just long enough to take the credit. One evening, after dinner, I caught him in Dad's study, leafing through property files. "Just curious," he said with that same easy grin. But there was something behind it, something sharp and calculating. From that moment, I started noticing things. Questions that didn't sound like questions. "So, you have access to Dad's business account, right? Or what happens if he, passes sooner than expected?" At first, I brushed it off as paranoia. I told myself he was just worried about Dad like the rest of us. But deep down, I felt a shift to slow. Crawling tension building in the air between us. Something was changing in Ryan. And though I didn't know it then, that curiosity of his wasn't harmless. It was the beginning of something much darker. When our father called us into his study one evening, I thought it was just another family meeting about his health. But his tone was different, measured, deliberate. He said, "I'm revising the estate plan. Everything will be divided based on responsibility, not birth order." Ryan's smile faltered. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. Our father praised me for managing the rental business, keeping the books balanced, and ensuring the tenants were happy. Ryan, on the other hand, was told to start proving himself. That night, he laughed it off. "Guess I better shape up, huh?" But his eyes said something else entirely. From then on, subtle resentment started dripping into everything. Mom would make comments like, "Your father should treat both his sons equally, or Ryan just needs time to mature." I knew where it came from. She always had a soft spot for him. She saw his charm as potential, not danger. I started catching Ryan snooping more often, hovering when I logged into business accounts, asking for reminders about passwords, pretending to help with financial files. He'd slap me on the shoulder and say, "Man, Dad really trusts you with everything, doesn't he?" It didn't sound like admiration. It sounded like accusation. Late one night, I overheard him whispering to Mom in the kitchen. Her voice trembled. "He's always been the favorite. Your father never believed in you the way he does in him." And Ryan replied, "We'll see about that." Those words hit me like ice. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just sibling rivalry. It was a slow, quiet war I hadn't agreed to fight. I wanted to believe blood would protect me. But I was starting to feel like Ryan didn't see a brother. When he looked at me, he saw an obstacle. It happened on a Sunday morning. I was fixing breakfast when Dad's voice thundered from his office, sharp, panicked, and furious. $30,000 is missing. I froze. Ryan came running down the stairs in his usual half-concerned way, hair messy, wearing that fake look of confusion he'd perfected over the years. I followed Dad into the office. His hands were trembling as he held a printed bank statement. The withdrawal had been made online from the business account. When I leaned closer to read it, my stomach dropped. The login ID on the transaction was mine. "Care to explain this?" Dad asked, his voice breaking between anger and disappointment. I stammered. "I didn't do this, Dad. I swear someone must have," Ryan cut in. "Maybe you messed up. It's easy to click the wrong account, right? Or maybe you needed the money." His tone was soft but poisoned, each word carefully designed to sound reasonable while twisting the knife deeper. I turned to him, my pulse pounding. What the hell are you implying? He shrugged. Nothing, man. Just saying. Accidents happen. Dad's face hardened. You've always been responsible, but this I can't overlook. His words shattered something inside me. After everything I'd done to keep the business afloat, this was what it came down to: a number on a screen in my brother's crocodile concern. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tore through every record I could find: transaction logs, account activity, anything to prove my innocence. But it was all clean. No sign of tampering, no proof of foul play. The money was gone, and the account had my digital fingerprints all over it. Ryan passed by my room before bed, pausing in the doorway. Tough day, huh? He said, smirking. Don't worry. Things have a way of sorting themselves out. That gring Tom, mocking, made my skin crawl. And for the first time in my life, I was truly afraid of my own brother. The next few days felt like living inside a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. Every time I walked into a room, conversations stopped. Mom's eyes no longer held the same warmth. They held disappointment, pity, maybe even disgust. She started locking drawers that were once open to everyone. Ryan, of course, played the perfect sun-checking on Dad, bringing him tea, pretending to mediate between us. I started retracing my steps, desperate to make sense of it. Then it hit me: Ryan had borrowed my laptop a week before the withdrawal. He said his was acting up and needed to send a few emails. At the time, I didn't think twice. I trusted him. That trust was now a noose tightening around my neck. I went through the browser history and noticed something: strange deleted entries. Traces of logins, timestamps that didn't match my activity. But when I confronted Ryan, he laughed. You seriously think I'd frame you? You're losing it, man. He leaned in close, that smug smile never fading. You're not as smart as you think. Maybe Dad's finally seeing it. Before I could respond, we got the call. Dad had collapsed. A heart complication. We rushed to the hospital, panic replacing anger. I remember holding his hand as he whispered, "Don't fight with your brother. Keep the family together." Ryan cried at his bedside, crocodile tears and all, while I stood there, choking on guilt and rage. Our father's condition stabilized, but the damage at home was irreversible. When we got back, Mom said coldly, "Your father doesn't want you handling finances anymore." Ryan didn't look at me. He didn't need to. His smirk said it all. I realized then it wasn't just theft. It was a setup. And the trap had already closed around me. A week later, Dad was still in the hospital. The family gathered in the waiting room when Ryan walked in, holding a folder like it was a trophy. "I think everyone deserves to know the truth," he said, voice dripping with false sincerity. Mom looked up, worried. "What truth, Ryan?" He laid out printed screenshots, emails, transfer records, even fake messages supposedly showing me confessing to taking the money for personal reasons. I felt the air leave my lungs. My own name, my own email manipulated perfectly. Dad's hand trembled as he stared at the papers. "You did this?" he whispered. His voice wasn't angry this time, it was broken. That hurt more than any yelling ever could. "Dad, please," I said, my throat burning. "Those aren't real. He faked them." Ryan sighed dramatically, pretending to stay calm. "Come on, man. I didn't want it to get this far, but you forced my hand. You can't lie to him anymore." Mom started crying. "I can't believe this. After everything your father gave you." The nurses turned to look. Relatives nearby began whispering. I could feel their judgment crawling over my skin, like insects. My face burned with humiliation. I wanted to scream, but what good would it do? I had no proof, only my word against his lies. Ryan put a hand on my shoulder and said softly, "It's okay, bro. We all make mistakes." The gesture looked compassionate from the outside, but it was mockery. Dad turned his face away. "Go home. I can't even look at you right now." I left the hospital in silence, my entire body trembling. That night, I sat in my car for hours in the parking lot. Staring at my reflection in the windshield, he had destroyed my name, my family, and my dignity in one single strike. But beneath the pain, something else was awakening, something cold, calculated, determined. I spent the next few weeks living like a ghost. My phone barely rang. Mom wouldn't answer my calls, and when she did, her voice was short and brittle like she was talking to a stranger. Dad's health had worsened again, and Ryan was always by his side, playing the devoted son while I was painted as the disgrace who betrayed them. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I started my own quiet investigation. I remembered that every time I logged into the business account, the bank sent a security alert email. I still had one from the day the money disappeared. It listed an IP address I didn't recognize. I called the bank, pretending to be concerned about unusual access. The rep hesitated, but after a little pleading and a fake story about identity theft, she confirmed it wasn't from my location. It was from another district entirely, one close to where Ryan's girlfriend lived. My chest tightened. It was him. I knew it. I decided to dig deeper. I contacted a friend who worked in IT security and asked him to check the logs I had forwarded. He confirmed there had been 2 devices accessing the account that day. My laptop and one registered under Ryan's name. I felt my hands shaking. Proof. Real. It's undeniable proof, but I couldn't show it yet. Not without a plan. Ryan had already won the family's trust. A confrontation without strategy would only make me look desperate or bitter, so I stayed silent. I smiled when people whispered. I nodded when relatives avoided eye contact. And in that silence, I collected everything timestamps. Call logs, screenshots, text backups. Because this wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. It was about watching my brother's empire of lies collapse piece by piece. Under the weight of his own greed, just as I was gathering the final pieces of proof, life delivered the cruelest blow imaginable. Dad passed away. It was sudden. A stroke in his sleep. One moment I was preparing to meet him and show him the truth. The next, I was standing in the living room, staring at Mom sobbing on the phone. Ryan was already there when I arrived, arm around her, tears glistening like he'd rehearsed them. At the funeral, Ryan gave a speech that made my stomach twist. My father taught me responsibility, he said solemnly, and I'll make sure his legacy is honored. Everyone nodded. No one looked at me. I could feel their judgment, the quiet whispers, the ungrateful son. The thief. After the burial, Ryan called a family discussion at the house. He announced that Dad had updated his will before passing, leaving everything to him. The properties, the accounts, the business gone. My name wasn't even mentioned. I sat there in silence, gripping the edge of the chair, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. That's impossible, I said finally. Dad would never, Ryan interrupted, sliding a folder across the table. It's all legal. Dad made his choice. Mom didn't meet my eyes. She whispered, "Your father couldn't trust you after what happened." Her voice cracked on the last word, but she didn't take it back. Something in me snapped quietly, then not with rage, but with clarity. They had buried more than my father that week. They buried my place in the family, my reputation, my entire sense of belonging. I stood up, looking at Ryan. He smiled, that same hollow, victorious grin. "Guess you'll have to start over," he said softly. He thought it was over. He thought he'd won. But grief has a way of burning away fear. And in the ashes of that loss, I found something else. Purpose. The days after Dad's death felt unreal. The house that once smelled of old wood and coffee now felt like a tomb, silent, heavy, and cold. Ryan moved fast, transferring assets, firing loyal staff, changing locks, and stamping his name across everything our father built. He even threw a small celebration dinner for business associates, talking about new beginnings. I didn't attend. I couldn't stomach it. Instead, I focused on the only thing that kept me sane: proof. I backed up every digital record I had. Then I visited Dad's lawyer, pretending to seek closure. When I asked if Dad had revised his will recently, he hesitated. "Ryan came in a few weeks ago," he said carefully. "Your father was too ill to meet in person. He signed through a notary that Ryan arranged."
Oh.
My stomach dropped. That wasn't Dad's style. He never signed important documents without me or his lawyer present. The puzzle was coming together, and it was uglier than I imagined. Later that week, I got a call from one of Ryan's former employees, Ellen, a quiet accountant who'd been fired abruptly. He sounded nervous but remorseful. "I can't live with this anymore," he said. "Ryan paid me to alter the financial logs before your dad saw them. He wanted you to look guilty." I recorded every word. That night I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by papers, screenshots, and voice memos. My laptop screen glowed in the dark, filled with the evidence of Ryan's betrayal, emails from fake accounts, altered timestamps, even his girlfriend's messages bragging about helping him fix the family problem. My chest was tight, but I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. Calm Ryan had built his kingdom on lies, and I finally had the blueprint to bring it down. All I needed now was the right moment to make him watch it crumble. I knew confronting Ryan privately would be useless. He'd just twist it, play the victim, and turn the family against me again. No, he needed to be exposed publicly, in a way he couldn't control or spin. When I heard he was hosting a grand launch event for his new business era, I knew that was my stage. Invitations went out to investors, local reporters, family friends, everyone who once admired my father. It was going to be Ryan's victory parade, and I was going to turn it into his downfall. I spent weeks preparing. I contacted the same journalist who once wrote a profile on our family's real estate success and sent her an anonymous message. "You'll want to cover this event. Some truths are about to surface." Next, I printed everything: emails, forged documents, voice transcriptions, and even Alan's recorded confession. Each piece carefully labeled and time-stamped. I made digital backups too, just in case Ryan tried to deny it later. When the day arrived, I dressed simply, black suit, no tie, calm expression. Ryan greeted guests with that same fake charm, shaking hands, posing for photos, flashing his father's old watch like a trophy. Mom stood by his side, proud and unaware of the storm that was about to hit. When he saw me walk in, his smile froze for a split second. "Didn't think you'd show," he muttered, stepping close. I met his gaze. Wouldn't miss it for the world. The tension between us was electric, unspoken war hiding behind polite smiles. As the speeches began and Ryan took the stage, thanking everyone for believing in his leadership, I stood near the back, clutching the folder under my arm. My heart pounded not with fear, but with anticipation. He thought tonight would mark his rise. He didn't know it would mark his fall. Ryan stood under the spotlight, microphone in hand, delivering the performance of his life. "My father built this empire from nothing," he said proudly, "and I'm honored to carry on his legacy with honesty and dedication." The audience applauded. Cameras flashed, and that was the exact moment I stepped forward. "Honesty?" I said, my voice cutting through the noise. The room went silent. Ryan blinked, frozen mid-sentence. "You want to show them what honesty looks like, brother?" A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. The journalist I'd contacted was already recording. Ryan tried to laugh it off. "Not now, man. We can talk later?" I walked straight to the projector connected to the stage screen and plugged in my USB drive. Within seconds, the screen filled with screenshots, bank statements, emails, voice recordings. "This," I said evenly, "is what really happened." Gasps echoed. Ryan's face drained of color as the crowd watched the trail of evidence unfold: his forged documents, his girlfriend's messages, Alan's recorded confession, and the altered will details verified by the lawyer. Every lie he'd built his kingdom on was laid bare in front of everyone who mattered. Ryan accessed the business account from his girlfriend's apartment. I continued. He faked a theft, made me the scapegoat, manipulated our dying father to sign a will that wasn't even legally witnessed. The room erupted. His girlfriend bolted for the door. The lawyer in attendance confirmed the signatures didn't match the originals. Ryan's voice cracked. "This is a setup." But no one believed him. I stepped closer, looking him dead in the eye. "You wanted to bury me? Congratulations, you've just dug your own grave." He dropped the mic, storming off stage as whispers turned into shouts. Reporters swarmed. My mother looked pale, shaking, unable to speak. For the first time in months, I wasn't angry. I just felt done. The truth was finally louder than his lies. The next 48 hours were chaos. The event made headlines. Local business heir exposed in inheritance fraud, son accused of forging father's will. Ryan's face was everywhere. His perfect image, the charming son, the successful businessman, collapsed overnight. I watched it unfold quietly from my apartment. The same relatives who once ignored me now flooded my phone with messages. "We're so sorry, we didn't know." Mom even called once, her voice trembling. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" I didn't answer. Because the truth was I had. They just didn't want to believe it then. Police investigations followed quickly. Alan turned over every file he had, confirming Ryan's payments and data manipulation. The lawyer cooperated too, submitting notarized evidence that proved Dad's signature had been forged. By the end of the week, Ryan's accounts were frozen. His company under audit, and his face, once the pride of our family, was the embodiment of shame. I went back to the hospital where Dad used to stay, just to sit in the garden for a while. I remember whispering, "I kept my promise, Dad." I didn't fight him with anger. I fought him with truth. But there was no satisfaction, only exhaustion. The kind that seeps into your bones after you've spent months bleeding emotionally for justice. Mom eventually met me face to face. Her eyes were red, and for a second, she looked smaller than I remembered. "He's lost everything," she said quietly. His girlfriend left, his friends vanished, and the police. She stopped herself, shaking. "He's still your brother." I nodded. There was nothing left to say. The truth had finally burned through the lies. But it took everything else with it. Our family, our home, our history. Still, I didn't regret it. Because sometimes, destruction is the only path to freedom. Months later, the noise faded. The headlines disappeared. Ryan's case dragged through the courts while his empire turned to dust. Every property, every deal, every fake friendship he'd built, it all crumbled piece by piece. I watched from a distance, detached, almost numb. There was no joy in seeing him fall, just quiet confirmation that karma had finally done its job. I sold my share of the inheritance. The courts returned to me and donated most of it to charity under Dad's name. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about peace. I rented a small apartment overlooking the city skyline, somewhere anonymous, where no one knew the story of two brothers who tore each other apart for greed and validation. One evening, I got a letter from Mom. It was handwritten, shaky, tear-stained. She wrote, "I don't know how to forgive either of you, but I know your father would have been proud of the man you became." I didn't cry.
Felt something loosen inside Mia.
Final thread of pain unraveling. I thought about Ryan a lot in those quiet hours, about how envy had eaten him alive long before the lies ever did. He thought winning meant taking everything from me, but in the end, he lost everything that mattered: respect, love, and peace. Sometimes I drive by our old neighborhood. The house still stands, but it doesn't feel like home anymore. It's just a monument to everything we lost. I've stopped seeking revenge. Truth was enough. It gave me closure, and that's something Ryan will never have. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by honesty. And as I walked away from that past for the last time, I realized sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's finally being free.